Hello and welcome back to Run It Back, Oceania's #1 Valorant podcast, as polled by many people in the Nielsen polls. You can just go check that out on their website. Definitely, publicly available stats. We can just constantly call ourselves the #1 every week. Who's our competition?
This is true.
Yeah.
It's #1 if there's no one else out there, so I mean, there you go. Too easy.
Yeah, look, it's like how some tournament organizers in this region can call themselves the #1 for points at time when there's literally no other competition going on.
Alrighty. Alright. Spicy and we're getting in
hot early, alright. Before we get in too hot though, I've got to call out our sponsors and shout them out. Blue Microphones, thank you so much for being our presenting partner. I am rocking the wonderful Blue Yeti right now. Josh has just hated me because I picked up the mic and probably ruined the audio gates for him. Anyways, look, it's a bit of a different podcast setup. I'm the only host face, I guess. I don't know. We've got like 3 hosts that are maybe guests. I don't know. I may as well just introduce you all. Hello, Xenox. How you going? The wrong way.
I don't know where I am anymore. I'm basically Kevin Averill Walker, right? I'm just here to cause issues. The only thing is Kevin actually knows Valorant a lot more than I do, so I can't offer much in that department, but I'm here to be a pretty face, smile, nod, agree with everyone, make everyone else seem like they know what they're talking about, and maybe talk a little bit about SEA.
Oh yeah, before we get too deep into it, how was it? So for those who are unaware, Xenox was the host of the SEA Masters broadcast, and you got to watch apparently the worst region, according to Slasher, with the Australian and NZ flags.
I saw that. I had a good laugh about that actually with the SEA casters. Yeah, they weren't too pleased with that one either. But hey, look, Southeast Asia. That was my first foray, really, even looking into the region Valorant wise. Very aggressive region, as they are in pretty much most FPS titles. I think we all know that. Over the many years of esports, it was a lot of fun, a lot of duelists, a lot of different metas, and in the end, the team that ended up winning everything was, I'm pretty sure, the team that got invited last second into the tournament. There was behind the scenes issues as well. Team got DQ'd. It all happened. It was great. It was a lot of fun.
It was all happening. It was very exciting. Well, there was relatively exciting action over here in OS. We've got the 2 guys down below who are both involved in it, Crash, the wonderful observer, and a victor himself, Orders Tux, who I last saw at a JB Hi-Fi on the billboard by the Logitech section. Did
you say g'day, mate?
Oh, look, it would look a bit weird. They'd probably think I'd be skitzing out on the floor or something, saying hi to someone on a poster, but if you want me to, I can wave the next time I go in. How are you going otherwise, mate?
Very good, thank you. Hope you guys are all doing really well. Also, and I'm very excited to be on here tonight.
Yeah, well, it's a joy to have you. And Crash, welcome back. It hasn't been a long time between drinks. You were here about a month ago. But what's changed?
A month ago. Yeah, not much. So yeah, I'm back. Just can't get enough of me. So there you go, boys.
Look, like I said on Twitter, this is just a test run for the new Run It Back. So Jake, Crash, make sure that you block out this time every Wednesday from here on out, because I don't think Kevin Rack are coming back.
That's fine with me. I made a mistake already. I actually got the team wrong that won SEA Masters. It wasn't the team that got added last second. It was the favorites, but they went to all 5 maps. That's why I got confused.
What? Oh yeah, it was X10 versus SMG, and SMG.
Yeah, so SMG replaced TMG because TMG had an issue with their roster, and so they got basically DQ'd. And an SMG with 1 day's notice got put into the tournament, made it all the way to the grand final, and almost knocked off the best.
Not bad.
There you go.
There you go. That's your quick dose of SCA Valorant. We are now diving into the juicy stuff, at least for us, which is the Oceanic stuff, with the Valorant Oceania Tour Stage 1 wrapping up over the weekend in results that basically no one could have predicted. I guess the path was unpredictable. We kind of got to an expected result with order winning, but it was look, let's just not say it was the smoothest of sailing for you guys, Tux. I don't know what graphic Josh is bringing up. Oh, there we go. It's the video. The final round in the grand final with Order and Mindfreak went the 5 maps. Look, Tux, just walk us through, I guess, the series as a whole, and I guess the weekend as a whole from your perspective on Order.
I guess starting from the weekend, everything before this game was pretty smooth sailing for us, I reckon. I just think they played really well on the third and fourth map. But still weren't really worried about it. I think we sort of got a bit complacent after the first two. It felt pretty easy at that point, but I mean, Kirsten, they played really well, and they've been improving a lot. That roster, especially since they've added Pex, who's a bit of a weapon in this game. Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't the easiest thing. We obviously would have liked the 3-0, but they just had our number on Haven and Icebox.
Crash, you were right there watching the games alongside them.
Yeah.
Like, what did you, I guess, see from your perspective? You know, how did you feel about the games as a whole?
If we're talking about the finals, or we're talking about the whole event overall.
We'll talk about the finals first. We'll work our way backwards.
Well, look, I'm happy that I got to do a finals once. You know, that's already a step up. So, you know, from other things, right? Outside of that, though, right? I'm really happy that like 5 maps is always fun for me. It's good experience as well. I did think it was no disrespect to the Mind Freak boys, but I thought after the first 2 maps it was like just over. And they surprised us, and I got to do more maps. I thought I was going to be wrapping up the day pretty early, but it turns out we're just going the distance. But yeah, it was good games to watch though. I can't be too disappointed with that. I mean, auto winning it's like that's a pretty expected result, really, like considering their like history and whatnot.
I mean, we say expected result, but I think a lot of people came into this tournament with high hopes of the new Wildcard roster, and yeah, that didn't go to plan. So for those who weren't watching, Wildcard got eliminated in the first round to Straight Out of the Zoo, who only made it in to the I guess they only made it in through the last chance qualifier, which was only made possible because EXO pulled out. And so it was just a massive upset overall. What you can see here is the final results and the point standings. Obviously, the top 2 teams, or the top 8 teams at the end of the 3 stages will be invited into one final qualifier, with the top 2 teams out of that going over to NA for the last chance qualifier into Champions in December. So obviously, Order picking up the 100 points there is very big. And Wildcard missing out and only getting 30 could impact them down the line, even if we expect them to bounce back. I mean, Crash, like Straight Out of the Zoo. What? How did that happen?
I think it was one of those things where it's just like a lot of things that can go wrong on a day just like happened at the same time, right? I mean, just some players maybe not showing up. Straight Out of Zoo also as well, literally just like fighting them the whole time. Like they played with so much confidence. I guess in their minds as well, they quite literally had nothing to lose, whilst Wildcard had everything to lose, right? Like they're expected to win that. They're expected to make finals, right? And Straight Out of the Zoo comes into this tournament with literally no pressure. They're like formed like a week before the tournament, right? So if you come into a tournament with like no pressure, like generally you're going to play like pretty well, considering you like it doesn't really matter where you like end up. Generally, like you're in it for fun at the end of the day, right? I think with like Wildcard, I mean, it's just one of those things where you just have a bad day and it all just kind of crumbles. It's just really unfortunate for them.
Yeah.
If anything.
Aren't they making roster changes?
Are
they sticking together? Was that just like a pug team? Oh my god, pug team! Here we go.
Pug team.
again.
That's a ranked team, mate.
Yeah, a ranked team. Yeah, this is like a different species of pug teams, mate.
Yeah, way worse.
I mean, did you like play? Like, you didn't play against them in the bracket, but like, did you ever like scrim against them, Tux, or not? You just
I didn't even know that they were they were in the tournament until they beat Wildcard.
Shot over here.
I mean, because we knew that EXO were playing, and then I guess it just didn't hit me that was the team that replaced EXO. But I think just in general, like it could be kind of hard in Valorant. Especially it's such a new game and people are still learning and the rosters are developing and there are so many talented players just coming out of ranked that the results are so inconsistent. There's definitely not a consistent top 4 and there's not really much of a skill gap aside from EXO and ourselves, I think. So pretty much if you think that the results might go one way, I feel like there can always be surprises amongst every other team.
I mean, like, I guess this really does bring in the community's thinking into question of like, are Order bad now? Or like, is the gap closing? Because like with the loss of EXO and like EXO, it's like everyone was like going, oh, but Wildcard formed a super team, you know, this is going to be like competitive with Order. We still haven't really seen that yet, mostly because like I think we saw it in one series and Wildcard won. And then like Demon also has disbanded. No, not Wildcard won, Order won. Yeah, that's brain fart. And then like Demon just like formed and then like a month later they disbanded. So like it's very volatile right now, which makes me interested to see what teams we're going to see in like stage 2. We'll get deeper into the roster shuffles a little bit later. We've got a section dedicated to that. The one, and I'm always going to bring this team up whenever I talk about it because I just really like talking about them. But even though they finished 4th, I was very happy with how Fun Crew performed because I feel like they're experimenting. And I know that we just spoke on the podcast last week, and I can say this without Kev flaming me because he's doing something else right now. But Fun Crew experimented with the sky. They've brought a couple of interesting picks to the table. And it feels like we're finally getting some innovation in this scene that we've much needed outside of Pants Down picking up Sage when no one else was. And so hats off to Fun Crew, even though they came 4th. And you know what? I'm really excited to see how they go forward. Like, Tux, I guess when it comes down to you guys, are they like one of the top teams on your radar?
I'd say that for me personally, one of the scariest. Not that I'd say that we're necessarily scared of them, but they are a team that can upset, and I think they are improving a lot. I actually quite enjoy playing against their team and watching their team. I think they have a few good players in Ronsky, who's like a very young player. I think he's quite young, and quite a bit of a name star, and plays with a fair bit of confidence. And I also think Fleshus is quite a good player as well. And I don't know. I think he's like is he like a FIFA player or something?
Yeah, he was
is.
FIFA. Yeah.
So to me, that's always been like very impressive. This guy came from FIFA, no FPS background, and he's, in my opinion, quite good at this game. And I think he's going to grow a lot. The rest of the team, yeah, they play pretty well as a team. I know that their Icebox is really good. And I think, yeah, hopefully they keep improving. Maybe a few roster changes, and they can really like push that top 4 consistently. Because they're upsetting a lot of people at the moment.
By the way, on the topic of freshers, you can go to snowballesports.com and read a wonderful feature interview by yours truly on the FIFA player himself. I did interview him after they almost made first strike, which was a very, very interesting time. Yeah, I mean the big draw card for VOT stage 1 for me was like, I guess it kind of did see where the rosters had landed after the roster shuffle that we saw originally, and now it's just like we're being thrown straight back into pandemonium again. So stage 2. Do we know how the points work, Crash? Do you know? Like, do teams keep points across stages? Or
I think you need a core of 3, and you
Okay.
keep those points, right? So it's like stage 1, 2, 3. If you got the highest amount of points at the end, you automatically like qualify for like NA alongside. I think it's winning stage 3. So like whatever 2 teams like end up doing that, it's like, yeah, you go off the NA. But yeah, if you have core of 3, I'm pretty certain that's how it works. I'll be honest. There's a lot I still don't know. Believe it or not. We don't talk about that there, but
If there's a
actually, so how it works, fellas. Hang on, I'll clarify this because
Yes,
I do know. Also, welcome to the New Order office. We like to pet the alien right here. I'm having a mental blank now. Yeah, so the points go across all 3 stages, and that's the top 8 that get invited into the final regional qualifier, and the top 2 out of that regional qualifier will go overseas. So they don't keep the points between qualifiers, but they all add up at the end.
Yes,
so everyone starts from scratch every single stage. No, I think you have to have core 3. Yeah, you don't keep it otherwise.
3? Yeah.
Is that core 3 from stage 1 though? Like if we go into stage 2 with like we make a roster change, and then we win points in stage 2, and then we change rosters again for stage 3. But the new guy that we add, like we got rid of 2 guys from stage 1, and then in stage 2 we add 2 new guys, and we have core 3 from stage 2, win points. We keep those points, go to stage 3. If we get rid of the 2 old guys from stage
I'm
we keep all of our points.
I'm sure whatever decision the tournament organizer makes, it's the wrong one. So let's just keep on going.
Okay. No, that'd be a question for LPL, I think. So we'll have to consult the rule sets, boys.
Yeah, it's something that will come across the line in the future once the inevitable roster shuffles keep on happening. I guess this is all this talk about roster shuffles and who did good, who did bad on the weekend is really nice segue into winners and losers. Like, who do we think like overperformed? Who do we think are underperformed? We brought up like the 2 major names straight out of the zoo and Wildcard, but Crash, I'm really interested to hear if there's another big winner or loser in your mind from the event that people should be looking at.
I I feel like Straight Out of Zoo is like the biggest like winner, just like out of nowhere, right? Because these guys, like, I feel like they should stick together as a team. Like, there's something there, right? Like, they've definitely got something. Outside of that, I think Mind Freak, they've actually shown like a lot of development and like quite a lot of growth, especially like with Arkin as a coach. I feel like he's like really done something with that team and just made them like really, really like good, just kind of like out of nowhere, like out of the blue, right? Because if you're watching their games, I think in the qualifiers before the main event, I don't remember what their results were entirely though. I'm actually going to check this right now because I don't want to be wrong in any of this though. I mean, they had like some just really like close results against some teams. Yeah, they lost to Kangar. They had a really good series against God Squad though. Like that was I think Mind Freak have like had quite a good amount of improvement in such a short amount of time. So that's definitely going to be like a winner in my eyes, right? And also like taking order to 5 maps is like no easy task either, right? Like getting all 5 maps in a best of 5 is already like hard enough to begin with, but against like arguably like the best team in the region, right? I mean, like that's an achievement in itself.
And Jake, obviously, you're on the SEA broadcast, so you might not have had as much time to keep up to date with the OCE stuff. But obviously, like Order keeping their mantle, I guess, is also a big win for them as well. Obviously, Mr. Tux down the bottom would have a bit to say about that himself. I'm interested to hear, you know, having seen Order back at First Strike, you know, them keeping this dominance could spell good things for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, look, just full disclosure, as you mentioned, I didn't get to see a single game because from March 18 all the way to March 21st, I was hosting SEA as you know, they clashed completely. I did keep up with the scores, and obviously, I did see that the grand final was close. I mean, I think the biggest takeaway for me, and this is obviously just looking at the box score here, but for Order going up 2-0, I think what I learned the most from this is Mindfreak's mentality to fight back, right? It's very easy if you go down 2-0 to maybe think, well, that's it. Order's a great team, full respect to them. That they're up 2-0, it's a long way back. But to fight back 2-0 down, I think shows a lot about Mindfreak, where they're at and where they're going to be in the future as well. Again, I didn't watch the games specifically, but even to be winning maps 13-9, 13-6, like they might have been close in the rounds, but the scoreboard kind of suggests that Mindfreak won those fair and square. So it also is big mentality for Order that, Mindfreak's coming back at them. All of a sudden, you're up 2-0, and now it's 2-2 in the grand final, and you think, geez, are we gonna choke this? Are we gonna lose like another grand final here? But mental dexterity was good from the side of Order. They've been there before. They've got the experience, and that probably pays dividends in the end. So I think it's good for pretty much both teams. And then you got the Straight Out of the Zoo, third place scenario. Like, there's so many storylines from this one tournament, and they're all positive. Like, how many negative storylines really are there besides maybe Wildcard, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's a few more. I might be missing a few there, but ultimately, I think you can take a lot out of this, and a lot of it's for the good.
Yeah. I do want to ask talks about, I guess, the team's mentality, but before that, while you bring that up about the negative storylines, the other one that I want to highlight is Direwolves, because they look completely lost without Ninum, and this tournament just proved that, and now they're already making roster changes again, with Yakuza being dropped. More on that a little bit later, or Yakuza leaving. I'm not sure how the circumstances of that played out, so I'll just use the nicer terminology. But they're going to be shipping for more fraggers coming, or I guess just a new player coming into stage 2. And that roster is just looking a little bit iffy without their star player. So hopefully they can pull things back together. But Tux, back to you, I guess, is like that mental fortitude thing that Xenox was talking about is really like important. And obviously you're an experienced head with the CSGO background, the Valorant background. Was there any really doubts in that series that, maybe there would be flashbacks to like the series gone by with you versus EXO and all those sweeps and reverse sweeps and close series and the mental fortitude that you guys had?
No, not really. I think in the series against Mindfreak, I mean, maybe Bind, but they just owned us on Icebox. And when that happens, every map is so different. You go into the last map, you just play it as a map. I mean, did you keep confident in Ascent or what it was?
Yeah, it was Ascent.
And we knew they were playing well, but we knew that our Ascent would still be better. So you just focus on that. And I guess that's where experience comes in. Knowing how to deal with those scenarios in big series and like in grand finals and whatnot, or potentially being upset by what you would consider a lesser team. we sort of just, refocused. And obviously a best of 5 is really mentally draining as well. And so when you go up 2-0 in a best of 5, you sort of think, we thought that was going to be over pretty fast. Fuck yeah, we're out of here at like 6 o'clock on Sunday Arvo, Sunday night. But yeah, I don't know. I think like mentally we were always fine. We sort of maybe got a bit complacent in Haven, and then Icebox. We knew that they played better than us, but we just like refocused for Ascent and knew that we just had to play our best at that map. We would win.
I mean, it was I guess Ascent was like, I remember this being hyped up on the broadcast between Conky and Komodo. Was like, oh yeah, it's like Mind Freak's map. Like this is a map that historically Mind Freak have been decent on. They beat ExoClan on it. They beat Funker on it. They beat Direwolves on it. They beat Shit Idiots of it. But then like they also lost to Straight Out of the Zoo on it. So I guess the storyline hanging into that final map was a little bit like, maybe it was sort of a mix of the momentum and the veto that could have played against Order's favor, but you guys really bounced back nicely to secure the win. I think that's I mean, I don't know how much veto is really playing to this game right now with only a limited map pool. Maybe you can shed a little bit more light on that yourself, Tox, but I feel like that storyline was a little bit like, to me.
I mean, just in general, sort of going back to what I said before, is that any team can the game is so inconsistent with how good teams are. Like no one is really that good or that exceptional. That any average team, or you would consider an average team, could take a map or take a series off of what you would consider a good team. And especially when you play into like agents and compositions, people can do things that you might not have seen before, or people can play confidently on a certain map, or their agent might be better on that kind of map. That can obviously play a huge factor into it. And also, like, not going like in Counter-Strike where you go to 16 rounds, you only go to 13. In Valorant, pistols play such a massive part that if you win both pistols, you have such an insane, like an insane win percentage. I would say, like, it's so hard to lose after winning both pistols. Like a team has to play exceptionally well to win while losing both pistols. And that can happen in any of these games. Like the pistols are so RNG in this game, in my opinion, just with the utility and like dashing and random jumping classics and whatnot. And the frenzy now as well, it's all ridiculous. Like pistols play such a massive part, but the pistol round in general is just so RNG. So that's where I think like a lot of these upsets come in. I don't know. Like I wouldn't consider any team being any good at any map, except EXO, who like we're just a good team on most maps. I think we're pretty much the same, but all of these other teams, they can lose to any other team.
Yeah. I mean, that sentiment, I guess, with like the RNG pistol map, it's giving me flashbacks to that Shazam like video from like maybe 6 weeks ago or something, where he was like massively complaining about the RNG of pistol rounds. Like Crash, you looked like you wanted to add on to that.
Oh no, it's just I think that was that in Frenzy meta as well.
It was Frenzy Stinger meta.
Well, I mean, that's very self-explanatory, right? Like everyone's buying like 5 like frenzies on a pistol round. All you're doing is running around, like you're running and gunning, right? Of course, it's going to be very RNG. Like that's just how the game was back there. At least like that got fixed pretty quickly though. But still, I mean, like classics, like jumping right clicks, like that stuff is like just so like just random, right? Oh, the Ninum peak, like little things like that. Like, yeah, I completely agree with Tox. Pistol rounds in this game are just like they can be quite RNG. It's really hard. I feel like as a team, it's really hard to have like consistent pistols, just because like there's so much that can happen, right? There's just way too many variables going into pistol rounds.
I guess this can broach a bit to detour a little bit, and we can get your input in here on this as well. Xenox is like, does Valorant does MR12 hinder Valorant a little bit? Like, would it be better with MR15, or is it just a case of like it's pick your poison between MR15 making for some long series with depending on how the overtime settings work, versus MR12 where things become so heavily I guess pistol round dominant, and if you win that and you win the second round, it can really snowball on throughout the entire half. I'm really interested to hear from you. Oh yeah, you guys act?
I think that like, firstly, I'm not qualified, but Tux is probably the better person to speak about it. But I would say that for me, you're going to end up just being in a situation where you are favoring one camp than the other, right? You can't please everybody. So some people are going to say, well, pistol rounds matter, and so you should put more stocks into making sure you do well in those rounds, right? So let's try and capitalize on that. Like if pistol rounds matter so much, we'll have strats for it and make sure we do as best as we can to win it and try and minimize the RNG as much as possible. And then you got the others who are like, just add more rounds so that they don't matter as much, or change the economy based on it so they don't matter as much. So it's kind of a potato, but definitely I think Tux is more qualified to speak about that, especially coming from that CS background.
To be honest, I actually really enjoy the MR12. I really like the fast pace of the games, and you will find more upsets. You just have to put more focus on your buy rounds, which are a lot more predictable. And you can obviously do way more, which is why I really love Valorant. There is so much depth to this game that you can do so much that you have to know every scenario, not every scenario, but you need to know so many scenarios of what the other team can do, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, and you need to come up with counters to that. And your T side as well, you can come up with some insane strats if you want to. But I also agree with Xenox in the sense that you probably can focus a lot more on pistol rounds and try and avoid the RNG or make sure that less of it is happening. But still, it can still happen. And like even now, since they've nerfed the frenzies, people will still buy frenzies. They'll just not get armor, or they will not get their utility because that gun is so ridiculously strong. Like putting up $100 doesn't really fix it that much because you still got jets and you still got razors. Razors gets a grenade and she just run around with a frenzy and instantly kills a guy anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same kind of issue that we're tackling right now with shotguns as well. There's just like, because like the Bucky is still ridiculously, Crash has just lost it, but like because the Bucky is still ridiculously cheap, and like then you've got like the razors satcheling in, the jets dashing in for like 900 creds, you get this gun that can do it all.
Yeah, like, what's with that? I was watching the grand final for SCA Masters, and their full buys was like a Bucky plus ARs. Like they had a Bucky like almost every round.
The first time I remember seeing this and actually taking notice of it was in First Strike Korea with F4Q, like when they had Bunny jumping in with the satchel packs onto like Ascent. I was trying to like, it was one of the maps that they played, and it was just like it was just impossible to counter. Like it was just like insane, and the fact that it hasn't been touched yet is astounding to me. And I know I cut you off, Tux, but so please continue if you want to rant about frenzies or Buckies.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say I think Buckies are just fucked. We won a round against Mindfreak on Ascent, where they won the first pistol round on their attacking side, and Ollie, like Dick, just retook A site with a Bucky by himself.
Yeah.
And that is just dumb. Like that should not happen.
That was on Ascent, wasn't it?
Yeah. Which is just ridiculous.
I just remember observing that round, and I was like always putting it onto the person who had like the Spectre or whatever, because I'm like, all right, absolutely no way this guy gets peaked, just gets like one shot by like a Bucky, right? I'm pretty certain like at least like more than half those kills in the round that I was observing were just on like the receiving end of a Bucky, like, right? And I was just showing the guy dying because I'm like, okay, apparently the Bucky just like one shots at every range, apparently, right? Like on A side or whatever. Like that's like nightmare for me, right? Like if that gun, I don't know how that gun has been in this game this whole time and like hasn't been touched, right? I think I remember something ages ago of a player in EU pulling out the Bucky in like some like 10-mans, right? He was getting flamed, right? Because I said I was using noob gun or whatever, right? Like a bunch of these like guys who just haven't realized it's OP yet. But it's like, no, the gun's always been this good. People just haven't experimented.
It was like that Bucky Sage only player that like made it to like the top of Reddit. Like that's the one that always floats around in my head.
So strange.
Right, please nerf the Bucky. Like,
please.
I don't know
how, but
just remove the right click.
Right? You can keep the right click. You just have to up the price. It's at 900 credits or whatever you call them. Like it's just so low that you can buy them anytime.
So to add on to it, since we're speaking about it, there was a guy in the grand finals for SA Masters. He almost pulled off a 1v5 because he started it off with 2 kills on the Bucky from like 20 meters away. Like the fact that that's just ridiculous. It was the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
And it's times like these where it's like, thank God, like CS:GO's economy doesn't exist within Valorant, because could you imagine a 900 cred Bucky just ripping you up $600 every time you get a kill? It'd just be like the only gun you'd ever need to buy is the Bucky. Like it just,
yeah, very true. And I think the Judge as well is a bit. The Judge is probably better than the Bucky, but it just costs a bit more. But you honestly need to up the price of both, because the Judge for what it is still really cheap.
Yeah. And the Judge was also nerfed. Like I remember like when the first shotgun discussion came around, they targeted the Judge and they kept the Bucky untouched, and now everyone's just like, the Bucky's now just strictly better.
Early days of, I think it was Trolley Head in the very early days of Valorant, running around with satchel charging and the Judge. I don't know. I do want to ask the question actually for Tux. What's the biggest difference with like the shotguns in Valorant and shotguns in CS? Like why are they so much more prevalent in Valorant?
Probably the price, definitely. Like in CS, the auto shotgun's like 2200, I think, and the Nova is 1100 or 1200. And the Nova's not even as close to as strong as the Bucky is because you don't have a right click and you don't have like the Bucky's right click is ridiculous, for what it is. Whereas the Nova in CS doesn't have that. And the auto shotty, yeah, in CS is still really strong, and players still do use that on certain maps. But in CS, the maps are generally bigger and there are longer range fights. So you'd only really see like the auto shotgun being put out on Nuke topside or something, on Nuke at a ramp, or whatever other map like B-Apps on Mirage. Whereas you can generally use a Bucky or a Judge at like somewhere on any of the maps in Valorant.
I mean, you've got people just jumping in with the like. You got people. I guess movement mechanics also like help shotguns a lot because it's a lot easier to get into players' face. But like, you've got people just doing full-on sight takes, not even holding corners, just running in full speed with the Bucky because they know they can get a kill at 25 meters if they right click.
Yeah, and actually, it's a good point you make as well about the movement abilities. That, you got jets and you got razors that can just launch, and they're just in your face straight away with a shotgun, and you can't do anything about it because you're one hit.
Yeah.
So that is a massive thing, and all the flashes that go off, like it's very hard to stop an actual execute when teams want to execute on you.
If you were to remove the right click on the Bucky, does it kill it? Like, does that just delete that gun?
Yeah, probably. I would say people wouldn't use it as much at all. But I mean, some people might still use the left click. The left click. Because you can still get to, like I said, the maps are so small, in a lot of choke points, you can get really close to where the attackers or the defenders are meant to be. Like B main, for example, on Ascent, you can just walk into B main and just play close with a left click Buck and you're still going to get kills. You just can't play so far back and you can't play like really tiny. The thing about the Buck is you can play these really, really tiny pixel lines and see a slidge of someone and they're just dead. Which just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So it's the versatility of the weapon that makes it so strong, compounded with the fact that you've got all these agents and shit that can literally just dash around the map, right? So if you're like really far, you just get super close. There's your left click, but if you're still pretty far away, you just right click.
Yeah. So it's a win-win situation for whoever has the Bucky. It's a lose-lose for whoever doesn't.
And it's cheap. It's not that
I mean, like it's a 900 credit investment. Like you're going to be putting more like to buy literally anything else. Like if you go pistol armor, you're basically putting in the same because if you're going pistol armor, you're buying a sheriff, and the sheriff's 800. So like you're putting $100, like 100 creds more in to potentially get like just a different gun to the sheriff that can still be very effective on like retakes or pushing sites.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's enough about the weapons, because I do want to talk a little bit about the meta comparisons between like NA, EU, SEA, OCE, because I feel like there was three big things that I noted, and we're gonna wrap around again. Is that OCE uses a shit ton of jet compared to any other region. Xenox, I didn't catch much SEA, so you can probably.
I'd say SEA was about 90% pick rate.
Yeah, so OCE jet was 93% pick rate in VOT finals. Versus, I think it was like 55% in NA and 29% in EU for Masters. So it's like wildly different pick rates for Jet. I don't know whether it's just because Jet has been a crutch for so long. I don't know whether it's because teams in OCE just need to play duelists because the strats that they can run without Jet just probably don't match up to play Jet, pick up an operator, win. I guess it's just something that might come with time as the region develops further. Like Crash, what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, look, I've always thought Jet was like one of those agents like at the start when no one really kind of like most teams. I'll say most teams, right? Because there was some pretty like decent teams out there that knew how to deal with an operator, right? Back when like the Jet operator was like like a must pick, right? I think one thing like now to think about is like, especially in EU, teams are mainly building a composition around like what works for them, right? So a lot of the time you're seeing either a Jet or a Raze, right? Because I feel like you can't play the game without one of those two agents, right? You need one of those two agents on your comp like at all times, right? You need an agent who can create space for like the rest of your team, especially in executes, right? Like that's like a non-negotiable, right? And Raze kind of like feels a similar role to Jet, right? Purely because you can take that space on attack. And that's what a lot of EU teams do now. I know Vision Strikers in Korea have like completely gone away from Jet, right? And they're also a team that's playing Sky on like 4 maps, right? So that's also something that like you need to take note of. Like there's like Sky and like other regions as well, and we're not playing Sky. There's like one team playing Sky and OC, which is like fun crew on one map, right?
Yeah.
So I think with Jet, it's really just like if you got I can understand if you got like an insane AWPer, right, or an op user, whatever, or just like someone who's just really good with the Jet knives, right, and create so much space. Like it makes sense, but I feel like teams just default towards the Jet, without really considering if it's best for them. I think it's one of those things where they just do it because I play Jet and ranked all the time. I'm pretty confident on this agent. I don't really want to experiment, you know. I think that's like the big one though. But I think like Tark's probably like knows quite a bit more than me there. I want to know like his thoughts on that really, because like, I know you put Autumn on Jet a lot, and he's got like insane amounts of impact with that operator, and just like him as a player overall. So like I want to know like I'm curious to see like why you guys do that. I know you don't play her on Split as well, which I don't really think Jet's like amazing on Split. She hasn't been for a while, right? I'm curious just to see like why you guys like play Jet like on all maps besides like Split.
It's just like a comfortability thing, I think. I think we don't play Jet on Split purely because we didn't really utilize it that much. And Kale's also Kale's actually Autumn is a very flexible player. He can play a lot of agents at a really high level. And his Reyna on that map is really good for us. Would be way better than what it would be with Jet. But I think just in general, I think Crash, you sort of nailed it a fair bit in the sense that like players are comfortable playing it because they play it all the time in ranked. And I think a big consideration is that one, our player pool and our team pool is very small compared to every other region and every other major region. We don't necessarily have the infrastructure and the coaches to come in and tell players what to play, or people that are doing research into the best agents, the best compositions that you could play. So people are just defaulting towards agents that they're really comfortable with and they think they can have the most impact on.
I guess that's a fine way to play the game right now when there's like no international play. Like we're not really looking at a landscape in OCE where it's like we've got to constantly refine our metas. We've got to constantly stay on top of what everyone else is playing so that we can be ready for them at the next big international event. Like, you know, how league teams have to refine themselves for MSI and Worlds. But like in Valorant, we're kind of in a closed-off ecosystem, systemic of the fact that we're not in Champions Tour. But it allows... I feel like the comfort path is still like a decent path to take. I don't mind if there is experimentation to be had, especially when it's justified and within its means, and players are picking up agents that actually make sense to how they play. But then there is also the flip side of the coin, where it's like when do things start to get too stale and like people become too? I guess I don't know what the right term is to do it. It's not necessarily like just following, because it's not really that, but it's just like this works in ranked or work in comp.
I think once again it does really just come down to accountability, and I think teams who I think you'd be genuinely surprised, and maybe you wouldn't be, but a lot of these teams that are competing even in the top 8 or whatever would not be a very structured team. They would go on and they would scrim, and I'm not sure if they would do much theory between themselves and talk about the strategies that they're using and really go into detail about the compositions that they're running and the agents that they're running. So Jet is a very good agent to have in a team that doesn't have much structure, because she can smoke herself, dash into the smoke. Yep. You can work around her so easily. Whereas if you're going to replace a Jet, you're going to have to put them on a Raze. And a lot of like the European teams and obviously the Koreans are just running Raze in their compositions and then building a lot of support around that Raze. And you need some really good structure to run a team composition around a Raze and make sure that Raze is using your utility. And because, you know, Jet notoriously is a very good entry fire. You can get into the sites really fast. You can dash past all the lines. With Raze, you have to make sure that there's utility going off so that she can satchel in. She doesn't have a smoke to cover herself, so she can get shot pretty easily when she gets onto the site. So I think that is a really big thing. And obviously just players in general, with the lack of structure in the teams, players play ranked all the time. Individually, they will probably be better off playing Jet than they would Raze, because they're going to have more impact in a team environment just because individually they're better on Jet than they are on Raze. And I'm sure you could say you can practice Raze, but yeah, that goes back to my point of that a team probably has to be built much stronger around a Raze than it does a Jet.
Yeah.
So really it comes down to like teams really trying to switch on and really look into playing structured Valorant, and really trying to get the best out of all the agents and the team composition that they're running. But you're probably not going to see that for a long time, because it's such a young game and we're such a small region with not a lot of resources to use in regards to coaches and analysts and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, like, Xenox, like you mentioned at the top of the broadcast, that there was a lot of duelists that you saw in SCA, like, you know, the double or even triple duelist comps that we saw at like First Strike NA. You know, maybe I didn't watch SCA, so I'm really interested to hear what you think from our most close regional neighbors about the style of play that they brought and how, you know, maybe it differs from the structured play that we've just been talking about.
I mean, in terms of meta comparisons, it's almost identical, especially when you consider a lot of the talk is about Jet. The biggest difference is, I mean, just looking at this stat apparently about Breach being like sub 20%. The team that won SCA Masters, every single game they played, they had a Breach. Didn't matter what map it was, they had a Breach. Every single game. They kept their lineups pretty similar. They ran Jet pretty much every single game, and we saw a lot of Jet Rays. And if like even just a quick little Wikipedia and like the lineups between say like Order's grand final and X10 Esports' grand final, they're pretty bloody similar, like almost identical for the most part. Just little tweaks here or there, like, you know, one agent difference. That's about it. In terms of the play styles, like, I mean, it's hard to say because I didn't obviously watch VOD, so I can't honestly say if SCA was more aggressive, but they definitely do some more unique things themselves. But in terms of the actual meta, it's actually very similar, and in that it differs from, you know, EU, for instance.
Yeah. And look, Kev's not here, so I can ask the forbidden question, Tox. I can ask about Viper and Icebox, because Kev is an ardent, I don't know, doesn't like Viper and Icebox, but we saw both you and Mindfreak pull it out in the grand final. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts about why teams in OC especially are picking Viper and Icebox.
SCA did it too, by the way.
Yeah, I think Europe do it as well. Yeah, I think I'm not sure if America do it, but I know the Koreans don't run Viper. I think that she's okay. I think we sort of just went into Icebox and we looked at a composition from Europe, and that was like, yeah, okay, cool, let's try Viper. And we didn't really put too much thought into it. We sort of just copied what they were doing. And she is quite good on the map, I think. I think her ulti is really strong, especially on the A side on attacking, and even B side. And on defense, her ulti can be used really well in mid or even at B. Her walls are actually quite strong for defending B, especially for the retake, because B is really hard to hold. So when you put up like a retake wall for Viper and you use her smoke, which can like cover the shipping container or like the train thingo, she can be really strong. Her mollies are really strong, and especially for the after plants on attacking side, her mollies are really strong, especially if you pair it with a Raisinade, or some teams run Killjoy and have her mollies there. It's like impossible for teams to defuse the bomb if you have proper lineups and you can actually hold the site. It's up to discussion really if Omen's better. I know some teams run Omen, some teams run Viper. I'm not really too sure. I do feel like she can be good on defense, but she doesn't have a lot of variance, or at least I don't run her with a lot of variance, and maybe I don't understand the agent that well on that map. Obviously, we got slammed by Mindfreak, so we obviously don't understand the map that well, which is something you'll have to look into. But I don't think she's the worst pick. I think she's actually pretty good, but yeah, I don't know. She's okay.
I guess it's something that, like, I guess comes with time, and like, look, we've got Astra on the horizon as well, and that's a whole new discussion to have that we might have a little bit of time for at the end. But it's like all this stuff is like the game's still new. Icebox is new, like compared to any other map because it was the most recently released one. So it's like all these things are just going to come in time. And I think like I think Norton's hitting on the head here is like Viper. He's saying in Twitch chat, Viper is definitely goated if teams know how to utilize her. Granted that probably every OCE team doesn't know how to 100% utilize her yet. And I think that's pretty true. She is getting buffed soon. Riot has said that like sometime between now and stage 2 starting, they're going to ship some more Viper buffs. Yora's also getting buffed in that. So I guess we might see a little bit more when stage 2 comes around. I do want to move on, though. We have recapped VOT sufficiently, talked about a lot of things. It was a very enlightening discussion. But I do want to look at the roster shuffles, which has already started as of like as soon as VOT broadcast finished. Like there was LFT tweets and everything. Just do a quick wrap of what we have so far is that Direwolves have dropped Yakuza. Obviously came in place of Ninum for VOT and has found himself a free agent after stage 1. Swell and Stein are still teamless, and Maple as well, after Demon has disbanded. I'm pretty sure Ferg and Gaz are both retired. I know Ferg did, not sure about Gazza. Junior is juring with Straxy to try and find a new team or make a new team. And there's a lot of free agents in that pool that like teams could potentially tap into. Like Noz is the number one that sticks out of my head. It's like a guy who hasn't been picked up and is still around the scene a little bit. Hex joined Mindfreak. That was for VOT. Now that's a permanent move. And Paradox dropped Rice, which we broke last week on the podcast when it happened literally midway through filming. But figured it would bring it up again. This is a lot of shifts though at the tier 1.5 and tier 2 level, with like right now the only two teams that are remaining or only 3 teams that are remaining untouched are you guys at Autotux, Wildcard for now, maybe, I don't know, maybe they might revisit how things look. I guess after going 8 or going 5th, 8th, and Fun Crew, and that's just because Fun Crew is just an anomaly to me. But I'm really interested to see how these shifts will land and how these teams will land. Crush, I'll go to you first with like, if you could put together like, you know, the pieces, like where do you see some of these guys ending up? Without leaking. No, this is a no leak zone. This is a
no leak zone.
hypothetical.
Look, I'm just gonna say right now, I don't know. I'm assuming it's because of the roster lock, but like, so I mean, as soon as Demon disbanded, Swell should have been on the team like instantly. I would assume it's roster lock. That stopped them from getting onto a team that would play in this tournament. Outside, I mean, I'd be very surprised if that person still is a free agent, like whilst we're like in this like 1 week break before like ESL calls, right? Because that's coming up as well. Already 4 teams got invited, so those guys also can make changes if needed, right? Outside of that, I mean, like Yakuza, like, I mean, he had pretty big shoes to fill, right? Like you're replacing like Ninum on a team, right? And Ninum's already just like such an insane player, like individually, right? So that's like, oh, it's really difficult. The interesting one to me, I feel, is like just Junior and Strax, right? Like being on a team or wanting to go as a duo. That's not something you like really see as much right now because it's generally just like single LFT bursts. I mean, he could just like those two could already just link up with Nation again because he's been LFT for a while, and then just add 2 more, right? I mean, that would make the most sense to me. Well, Swell, I mean, yeah, that would probably make the most sense there. But I mean, I would be very surprised if Swell isn't on a team going into ESL or like stage 2. That would make absolutely 0 sense. That guy has like a lot of talent, and he's not being like utilized right now. It's like Tens, how he was just content creator for a bit, right? Then he comes back and he joins Sentinels and he's just like running the show, right? Like he's just dropping like 30s every map, right? It's quite literally just like that. It's like we've got a mini Tens over here in OCE. And this guy just doesn't have an opportunity yet, which absolutely blows my mind. But I mean, we'll see. So it's always something.
Please, someone pick up Swell. I'm begging you.
Yes, please.
It is too good. And same with Signed as well. Like I feel like Swell and Signed as a package deal can like improve like 99% of the OCE rosters that currently exist. But yeah, I guess that's kind of just the wait and see. We'll have more details on that roster shuffle in the future. Now, guys, we've had this on the run sheet for about 4 weeks, by the way, and only now have we managed to get around to talking about it because we've got a little bit more time. And I want to bring up Astra because she's going to be enabled for VOT Stage 2. The new Cosmic Controller agent who has been out and ranked for about a month now, maybe 3 weeks. Is finally going to make her entrance into pro play. Tux, to you, do you like? Have you guys been practicing with her? Like, do you, not to leak any secret strats, but do you think that like she could have an impact on the meta?
No, I haven't been practicing with her because she was banned in VOT. But I haven't really looked at her too much. But Matt was telling me, Texa, that she is quite a good agent. So that's definitely something we'll look at going into the future. I think she's quite strong. Her little pulley thing, her smokes. I don't even know how many she has, but I believe she's a pretty strong agent. And her ulti is like quite ridiculous as well.
I mean, she has a million smokes when you like just account for the fact that she can just recall and get a smoke for free. Like it's just...
I think she has a really high skill cap. So I think you'll start seeing really good Astra players. I'm not sure if they'll get rid of Omen because Omen is just such a strong player, but I guess it's like, in my opinion, it kind of completely eliminates Brimmy. I think Brimmy is kind of useless now if you can pick Astra or Omen. Especially like, you're not going to pick Brimstone over Astra. I just can't believe that. But I guess some teams might still run Omen.
Yeah, like, I guess like the number one map that I look towards is like where teams started bringing back the Brim was on Bind, and I just feel like Astra in every single way is going to be better on Bind than Brimstone, and so I feel like that could really impact the meta. Xenox, was that your first time seeing her? Just a quick question.
Jesus Christ. When I actually first saw her, and the first thing I thought about was the ability to flex onto her versus someone who, quote, like mains her, right? Like where's Valorant heading? Are we heading into a world where people main a certain agent? Like this is their thing? Like I'm an Astra main? Or is anyone able to, at the high level, be able to just flex over and be like, yeah, okay, we need Astra for this specific map. And I definitely agree with Tux that I think she's going to have a high skill ceiling, and that for some may perceive her as not being strong because they can't play her to her fullest potential. They can't quite unlock the 100% skill needed to play her at her best. But at her best, I mean, having had a look at her toolkit, I think she will actually be quite good. Whether that's straight away, probably not. Maybe might take a couple of months or something. But when someone figures out how to play this agent at like 110% and they know all the little tricks, she just brings too much. And the question for me will be, can people just flex onto her? Can they just pick her up really quickly? Or is she going to take a long time to like really learn how to play at the highest level required, needed to actually bring her into the comp scene? So I'm very intrigued to see this one play out. I think some agents are kind of tricky, but I think for the most part, most are pretty simplistic, right? It's like smokes, mollies, and things like that. Yeah, if you want to go that extra 10%, you're going to have to learn little tricks and stuff. But this is, I think, a big step forward. How many more difficult agents are going to come out in the future that people need to sort of main to get to the fullest level?
I mean, the thing that I think about, like, the number one comparison is there are teams who play Viper and there are teams who don't play Viper. And that is just because Viper is an agent that you need to know if you want to ever bring her into a competitive environment. I feel like that's kind of the basket Astra is going to fall into. And I think it's really interesting that we're talking about, like, Astra being, like, because she's in control, is probably going to fill the smokes role, which means she's probably going to replace Omen or Brimstone in a team comp. I think it will. I actually even think that we might even see an Astra in alongside an Omen or alongside a second smoker. I'm not sure what she would like replace precisely, but I feel like the rest of her kit is so strong that it's honestly just worth running double smokes and just like completely blacking out a bomb site and just doing a hit like that or a retake like that.
I think the one thing that, you touched on it for a second there. I don't think you can run. I personally don't think you can run Astra like by herself. I'm literally about to say what just put in chat, right? I think you run her over a Cypher or a Killjoy, right? A bunch of teams right now are also steering away from the Cypher or the Killjoy anyway, right? Because and what are you doing, right? You're playing double duelists with like a server breach and your smokes or something like that, or like your server, your smokes and your other support agent, right? And Astra is like a pseudo sentinel, right? Also, this like label thing with like sentinels and like controllers, blah blah blah. Like I still don't like it, right? I think if you're playing an agent, you're playing it because it suits your play style, right? I think one of the things that teams need to realize is that Astra can probably come in, replace that sentinel role, right? Now you're playing these double smokes, and the only issue with this is if you're playing Astra and you're playing her with another controller, like an Omen or a Brim, you probably are forced to run a single duelist, right? Like that's the thing that I think teams need to realize is well, I don't think you can run double duelists if you're playing Astra plus another controller. It's just not going to make any sense. You basically need your server, right? Like you need your server or a Sky. Like you need some sort of like extra support. And then you need like double support outside of those two, right? I don't think double duelist is viable with her. If anything, she replaces the Sentinel. I don't think teams will ever run Astra by herself. There's probably a world where that happens, and granted, we haven't seen her in pro play yet, so my knowledge on the agent is like so limited, right? I've only been seeing it like tricks in like ranked or whatever, right? But I think this is like the one thing that like makes the most sense, right? You replace the Sentinel and you play single duelist. Double duelist won't work with her. I'm pretty like strongly against playing double duelist with her.
Hear me out. You get Brimstone, you get Omen, you get Astra, and you get Jet. Fifth flex, probably Sova. Now no one can see anything. Like,
what about
how can you add the? If you can't see anything,
you gotta add the Viper over the Sova.
You can have the Viper as well. There you go.
There you go.
If you want more strats like that, I can come up for them for more. Just like me. I'm sure that like you need an analyst or something. I'm right here. As you can just tell, my services are much needed.
I appreciate it.
I mean, you watch a lot of Korean VODs, so I'd assume you got something going on there.
Yeah, but like that also just means I'm a Breach enthusiast at heart.
That's true.
I'm too attached to Breach Jet to like ever tear it away from me.
I wouldn't be
I don't know.
surprised if she comes down to also just specific maps as well, rather than just
Yep.
like a generalized thing. Like instead of just being like, right, minus Sentinel plus Astra, it'll probably like on some maps you're still going to want that Sentinel, so it doesn't quite work. But on other maps where it's like, hey, maybe we don't need the Sentinel, maybe we can mix it up a bit and then go and pick up the Astra. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, the thing is, like, as more agents are added, it's like more agents are added, but you still only got 5 slots. Like, there are going to be agents that come into the game that just don't get played, and it's going to eventually just happen more and more often.
I mean, we've just seen that, like, with the last 2 releases of Sky and Yoru. It's just, like, 2 agents that were released to, like, much hype, and then it was just like, oh, Sky, I don't really, like, her flaws are just, like, she's, like, just strictly worse than Breach, and then, like, Yoru is just, like, an abomination of a character. That just...
Well, he's the most useless agent in the game. I don't even know what do you even do to save that agent, right? I thought his flashes are pretty decent, right? How you could like pop flash a teammate in, right? Like you'd probably be able to figure something out with that. But like, how do you actually save that agent? I feel like his kit's just sort of like flawed. Like the footsteps are like the footsteps making a sound that doesn't replicate like your actual footsteps is like a big like red flag, right? Like that ability is basically like almost useless, right? Like how are you getting any utility out of that? Like I'm trying to. How do you actually save this agent? I actually don't know. Like, what do you do? But, like Sky, on the other hand, like she's like teams just didn't experiment with her, and now you've got Vision Strikers, right? I know, like I'm just anytime I say Vision Strikers, I know that like Bucky's gonna like be very interested, right? So and now they're playing Sky on like 4 maps, which I think teams weren't experimenting with just because it was out of their comfort zone. I think it's another one of those things, right? There's a good amount of Sky play rate in EU. I know Envy plays Sky on Split. And I think they also play Sky on Icebox. So there's some teams experimenting with her, and they're getting decent success out of it, right? I think it's one of those things where it's like, I wouldn't say Sky's an insanely worse Breach. I think it's more Sky adds things to the team that are different to a Breach, outside of obviously having the same flashes, right? Like you have a drone as well, like a pseudo drone, and you have like a really good retake ult or a really good info ult as well, which is something that teams don't remember as well. And like I know, Vision Strikers, they play Server and Sky, right? That's double info agents. Like it's just they're playing a different style of Valorant where they're playing off of info, right? They're not playing to like fight all the time. They're playing to get certain info to make like good judgments on where to end the round. You know, like what to do in the round, which is like the things just that team don't do anywhere else really.
Yeah, I guess for one final wraparound, guys, Tux. I love that Yoru point that Crash brought up. How the hell do we save Yoru? Because we've already solved the Bucky issue on this podcast tonight. We've already spoken about the plethora of other issues with the MR12 versus MR15, you know, frenzies, pistol rounds. How do we save Yoru?
I don't fucking know. He's a dog shit agent. He's built just wrong. Like he doesn't have good abilities. Like I'm not sure how you buff him. You kind of just have to rework him. And I feel like, you know, obviously Riot coming from League of Legends have reworked characters or whatever they're called in that game, or champions. They'll probably do the same thing. His abilities just aren't, like, his flash is kind of good, but his other abilities are just kind of useless. And a lot of people aren't going to get fooled by his little footsteps, and his TP isn't that good, like his ulti. Like you're just going to always pick other agents over him. I'm actually interested to see what they do with him, because I still feel like even after a buff, they're not going to pick him. It's going to be the same as Viper. Like no one's going to pick them, even if they're buffed. You're going to have to keep buffing them to the point where they change them, because it doesn't matter what buff you do, their kit is just horrible.
Yeah. It's going to be a point like where it's buffed, where it's like people like that one person just goes like, oh, this sounds like really fun to try. He seems like okay right now, plays him, is instantly like giga broken, then goes to 100% pick rate. Like I feel like there won't be like any in between. Like we've seen that in like countless other games. We saw that in like League of Legends. That's like the number one example I can think of, like Yumi as the big pick, where she was like the worst champion on release. Someone figured out how to play her, and then everyone played her, and she had like a 65% win rate or something. Like it was bonkers. It was one of the worst months of League of Legends I've ever seen, and I feel like we're just going to see that. Dogratz just put a good point. Krieg meta in CS, you know, we saw that with the Krieg and the Org, where it's just like, oh, you know, let's just try this out, and then like, holy shit, it's just meta for 6 months because Valve never patches their game.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I feel like that's more kind of like Sky though. Sort of like Sky, I think, is a very, like Crash said, like she's an underused agent and a very unknown agent. And like Vision Strikers, she has a good kit. People just weren't really using her, didn't really understand how to use her. Whereas like I think Yoru just doesn't have a good kit. And yeah, they can buff him, but I don't really know how. Like what they give him more flashes or
He'll get a rework in 2 years. That's the right
That's
way.
a saving grace.
And look, you know, when we look at, you know, another dozen agents down the line, you know, when picks and bans potentially come in, we might see Yoru getting picked up when the 7 other Flash agents that will likely be out by then are banned, and everyone's just like, well, shit, I guess I have to play Yoru if we want to Flash.
I don't even think you'd pick him if you needed flashes. You'd need to get reworked. Like you'd just be griefing in like agent select or whatever. Like it's just so awful. I don't know what's going on in their camp, to be honest. Like there's just so much wrong with the kit in this game.
Yeah.
Like it's whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. And with that, I think that's some good conversation that we've had tonight, guys. We have saved Valorant single-handedly.
Yes.
You can all hire us, right, please? Our Twitter handles are conveniently placed below each of our name tags. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to give you all a send-off. We usually give the guests a send-off. You're all kind of guests, so Xenox, we'll go to you first.
I didn't really do anything tonight, but thanks for having me on. And hopefully Avril will be back next week.
Look, you did do something tonight, Xenox. You were the handsome man on camera for us. And
True.
That's a very hard.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Crash, Tux, you guys are some good-looking dudes.
Mate.
Not okay.
Not you,
I see how. I see how.
Yeah,
this is.
unlucky, mate. Oh, he's just not. No, he's back. Never mind.
I'm back. I've got a show to wrap up. I've got to put on. You know the show. The show must go on. And with that, Crash, you know, do we have any passing words before you come back out in a month's time?
Yeah, just I'll be back here in a month's time, just as usual, right? Oh my camera is blurry. Jesus, Aussie internet. Outside of that, though, I'll be doing ESL calls this week. So catch me there, boys, if you want to see some kills. You know, that's always a good start. So there you go. See some kills on Saturday.
Any casting in the future?
Oh, I mean, apparently everyone's a caster, so like, who knows?
Oh man.
I'm pretty sure Xenox is the only official Valorant caster in this region now. After all, he's got the Masters event under his belt.
Yes.
What other OS caster has a Masters event?
Yeah, true. Just get him for every event. Like he's the only qualified one out of everyone here.
Yeah. and Tox, for you, obviously you guys aren't playing ESL. You've already made it through.
Yep.
But
nice.
Where can we find you, and what's the future looking like for Order?
Well, you can just find me on Twitter right here or wherever. I think we will just keep practicing. We'll keep working on things. We'll be playing in the ESL event on whenever those things start for us. I don't know. It's in like May or something. But other than that, I think we'll be pretty quiet. We'll just keep practicing, and we'll see you guys all sometime soon. I really appreciate you guys having me on here. I really loved it. It was a very enjoyable experience. Love chatting to you blokes, so I appreciate it very much, and I hope everyone enjoyed listening and watching.
Well, I'm very much going to miss all of your presence next week when I have to deal with the inevitable bog down of Avril and Racket. So I'm going to really relish in this for like I might watch the VOD a couple of times. Be sure to check out the VODs on YouTube and Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts afterwards, guys. And thank you so much for watching again. Thank you so much to our presenting partner, Blue Microphones, who are wonderful, wonderful people. Please just, I don't know, support the podcast. Go check them out. I don't know what to say. Thank you so much. We'll see you next Wednesday, same time, same place. Good night.